It's a finite glimpse of the infinite.
Finite glimpse of the infinite.
Which I do want to say that's what I feel that's the perfect description of what I experienced. And it's been 20 something years since then. What I'm finding now in my mid 40s is there are moments where I don't remember, I start to forget. I start to forget. And when I start to forget, I begin what I call the grasping. And I start grasping onto identity, grasping onto meaning, grasping. And as you said, Jillian, that's the way that I remember is I do exactly what you said. I literally sit in silence and literally go back to that space, back to that moment on March 31st, 1995, when I was in that wholeness. And sometimes I can really be there, and other times I'm grasping and I see the grasp and I'm not in the wholeness fully, but I think it's the same thing for you, Rob. It's just it's a continual remembering.
Yes, and you're tapping into an essential aspect of what we're discussing here. When you talk about the grasping, typically grasping, what are we grasping at? We're typically grasping at an outcome.
Right.
We're grasping at something that we have defined for ourselves that we would like to create, something that we would like to experience. And so this is, to me, Alyssa, you started talking about freedom. I heard the word come out of your mouth, and this is the freedom that we're talking about, because when you release grasping, we'll use that word, grasping at an outcome or trying to fulfill an expectation, the level of freedom that arises in that moment is expansive. And this is something that makes again, the reconnective healing experience, that what attracted me so much to the actual the engagement within the reconnective healing experience is being able to release the notion that I am here to create a specific outcome.
Right.
And let's talk about it. I mean, we can talk about it in terms of our own lives, where it's very powerful when we do that in our own lives. But let's talk about it in conventional terms when you're talking about maybe facilitating a healing session, because reconnective healing is often applied professionally, like as I do, as I shared with Ria, a few weeks ago. And during those moments, and this is the beauty for me, during those moments when you step into that interaction with another human being, or any, it doesn't have to be a human being. We do this with animals, but that's another discussion. But anyway, when you're stepping into this interaction with another human being, and you could stand in your awareness that you are there in that moment, not to create an experience for that person, not to achieve an outcome. And as a matter of fact, when we work with someone in the reconnected healing experience, we don't even ask for any aspect of their background, history, their hopes, their desires, their intentions. We actually invite that individual to put that aside and just step into an experience where they are just going to be the observers and the witness. And guess what? That's what we are doing. We're stepping in and saying, what happens when I am just allowing myself to be present? I'm going to be aware and attentive to whatever shows up in this interaction. And isn't it amazing that when we do that and we put aside the need to create and grasp at an outcome, we actually blow the door wide open so that we can allow for the intelligence of the universe, however you want to conceptualize it, to be an active participant in the process and to bring to the experience what's appropriate and what's necessary without trying to fit it into a box. It's so funny. It's like we often, as healing practitioners, we think about working with universal intelligence. Like I'm tapping into source energy and I'm going to send this to this individual and I'm going to help them create X, Y, or Z. But we forget that in that term, universal intelligence is the word intelligence. There is an awareness, and that awareness knows what we need, what you and I need. It knows what's necessary and appropriate in that moment. But sometimes we forget that it's not our job in that moment to try to say, okay, universal intelligence, I know you're here with me. I'm going to have you just step to the side for a moment, and I'm going to translate what I believe is necessary. I'm going to bring that through in my limited, human awareness. And if I can put that aside and just become what we call a catalyst for healing, and that's a huge distinction. We often think of ourselves as healers, as conduits. We're bringing in and through this source energy, healing, the healing energy of the universe, whatever you want, however you want to describe it, that we're channeling that or becoming a conduit. But the beautiful concept of a catalyst is that the catalyst, I think of a candle, for example, as an illustrative example. A candle is very much a catalyst for inspiration and ignition, right? When you have a candle and you bring that candle to light another, the candle doesn't take its flame and send it or give it to someone else. It simply inspires illumination through contact, through that interaction. But the candle still retains its glow. It still maintains its radiance. It is not diminished. It didn't allow something to pass through it and onto something else. It just inspired ignition. And